Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, faithful followers of Two Average Guys, welcome back. This is episode 3. Very excited to talk about this week. Sorry we're a couple days late. I ended up being really sick for a couple days, so we'll get back on track this next Sunday with episode 4. But let's talk about week 3. First, we're going to talk about our picks that we made last week. So let's see how we did. First game that we picked over was Georgia Tech at Notre Dame. I picked Notre Dame. Jimmy picked Georgia Tech. Jimmy, who won that game?
Notre Dame won that game, and I think I made a comment last week that we'll see. I was going to give you a hard time, but...
Yep, so that's one for me, another victory. Then we had number 18 Auburn and number 13 LSU. We both picked LSU. We'll talk about that game here in just a little bit, so we both get 1 point there. Then we got Stanford, which was ranked number 21, at number 6 USC. And I picked Stanford. Jimmy picked USC. Who won that one?
Stanford won that one.
Stanford beat USC, and that was a hell of a game. So we'll talk about that. Then we got Ole Miss, number 15, against number 2 Alabama.
Who won that one?
That was not Alabama. I picked Alabama. Jimmy got Ole Miss, so that's 1 point for him. And then we got number 20 BYU at number 10 UCLA. We both picked UCLA in that game. Ended up being a lot closer than we projected, but we'll talk about that as well. So we both get a point there. And the saddest of them all, Nebraska at Miami. So let's start off with that game. Nebraska loses. We both picked Nebraska. We are now tied. 6 wins and 5 losses, both of us, over the last 2 weeks.
Not too bad.
Not too shabby.
As far as Nebraska goes, they're not quite over 500. Terrible first half. Terrible first quarter. I mean, 3 drives.
Terrible 3
boom,
quarters.
Boom, boom. Brad Guy pretty much could do whatever he wanted. Picked apart the secondary. You know, for a lot of that first half, down 17-0, down quite a bit late in the game.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good comeback. I wasn't expecting it. I was still hoping for it, but pretty good comeback. Kind of heartbreaking yet again. An interception in the end zone in the first play of.
Yeah. Well, and you got Brad Kaya, who they asked after the game, how'd you pick apart Nebraska's defense? You know what he said? He watched Oregon State film on their defense. Because guess what? We brought over all Oregon State staff. So he beat us at our own game. He had a good game. We made Miami look a lot better than what I think they are. But we also kind of showed our true colors and how maybe ungreat we're going to be this year. But we're 1-2. Don't lose hope out there, Husker fans. We'll keep it flowing, and we'll try to keep moving on this season.
Yeah, you can't take. I mean, Miami's 3-0. You can't really take anything away from them. Like you said, though, I think we made them look a little better than they were. Sorry, Jesse. They're 3-0. And they're gonna have a good season. Brad Kai's a good quarterback, but we did make them look a little better than they probably are. We'll see how their season goes. Their quarterback's definitely good enough to give them a shot to make a pretty decent run in the ACC. So we'll see.
All right. So enough about Nebraska. We got Southern Miss next week. Southern Miss, bring it on. We got you. All right. So Clemson. Clemson played Louisville this last week on Thursday night, and oh boy, that was a good game. Very, very fun game to watch. Louisville's offense, they struggled, but they put up a good enough fight against Clemson where their defense kept them in the game. Clemson just edged them out on top, and Clemson was ranked 11. And I don't believe Clemson moved in the rankings after that 20-17 victory.
I don't think they've moved at all. Thursday night road game, kind of tricky against a tough, tough matchup there. Louisville was winning that game, I believe, at halftime.
Yep.
I wasn't watching, but you were giving me updates. It seemed like a pretty good game, pretty fun college football game. Yep. That's what we like to see. That's what we're all about. But credit Clemson for getting a greasy road win, if you will, and staying undefeated and seeing where they can take their season.
Yep.
So.
All right. So Saturday had some pretty good games on Saturday. Florida State
Florida State was on Friday night.
Oh, that's right.
Florida State, Boston College was Friday
played Boston
night.
College, and I think Florida State was a pretty good favorite in that game. We had some nasty weather, some rain before the game, and anybody that's been watching Notre Dame over the last couple of years, you know Everett Golson does not play well in rain.
Turnovers.
He can't throw the ball. He turns it over. He slips a lot. He kind of sucks in the rain, and he kind of showed that this entire game. Did not play very well. They won 14-0, and the headline will say that Florida State's defense destroyed Boston College, but Boston College, their offense is very mediocre, and Florida State's defense, yes, they played really well, but Boston College is not a great team this year either, so a 14-0 win over a Boston College team was not that impressive to me for Florida State.
We've been hating on Florida State quite a bit this year with good reason, I think, too. They haven't really showed much. Golson turns the ball over in the rain, turns the ball over in general, but when I think his mindset kind of changes when it's raining, because he can run, and when he, like you said, he slips and stuff, and he just gets out of his game. So I guess they still went on the road and won. They're undefeated. They dropped, I think, a spot.
Yeah.
But we'll see how they continue to shake out. So
we'll see how they do. Then we had Michigan State. They're ranked number 2 after this last week, and I believe they won by 2 touchdowns. So not a fantastic win, but they came out early. They had a good start to the game. Kind of coached out a pretty decent game. One
of the receivers had a couple, 2-3 touchdowns.
Yep.
Looked pretty good.
Yep,
they were up big early. Had kind of a defensive letdown in the second half, but
yeah, I'm okay with Michigan State being at number 2 after this last week. I mean, I think they deserve it. I think they're playing well. I think they'll continue to play well in the Big Ten, and they're going to give Ohio State a run for the money here this year.
I certainly hope that both those teams are undefeated when they meet, and I think Michigan State will give them a pretty good run, especially after what we saw this week. So
absolutely. And then we got Missouri. Missouri sucks again.
Missouri sucks again.
They were terrible again, and somehow they're still in the rankings. They only dropped, I think, 3 spots from 22 to 25. I don't know how Missouri's still in the rankings. Maybe it's because they're now an SEC team. I don't know. Just a thought. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I think it's the SEC.
The last 2 seasons, they were pretty decent. They made some runs to SEC championship games, but just because of that. That doesn't mean that they should still be ranked. Again, with those preseason rankings, I guess they just give teams the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That game was 6-2 at halftime. UConn was winning off a blocked extra point and a safety. Game ended 9-6. UConn tried a fake field goal at the end of the game and got intercepted.
Yeah, pretty ugly.
We'll see how Missouri does when they get to the SEC.
They got Kentucky this week.
At Kentucky.
They got Kentucky at Kentucky, so we'll talk about that and what we think about that game here towards the end of the show. Who else we got to talk about?
Northwestern at Duke. Not necessarily a shiny game on the surface, but Duke's had pretty decent teams the last couple seasons. Northwestern's kind of up and running. They're having a pretty good season. As you saw, they knocked off Stanford in the first week. They got another kind of greasy road win. It was a pretty good game. Aside from Northwestern had a long touchdown run. Other than that, it was, like 10-10, pretty close game. So that was kind of a fun one to watch. I got to actually watch some of that game. But Northwestern, Big Ten team, they're in the top. They're like 16th or something. They're 17th.
Still trying to represent the Big Ten. Somebody has to. Besides Michigan State and Ohio State.
Michigan State and Ohio State, yeah.
We'll leave Ohio State for last.
Okay.
So Northwestern, they struggled in the first game. They did not look very good, but they have come back from that, and I think they're going to be a pretty solid team. So let's skip to Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. Okay, so I had somebody ask me, and if you're on our Facebook page, he asked, what do you think the chances are of Notre Dame making the playoff? And I told him to stop pestering us about it, because both of us think Notre Dame is not going to make the playoff this year. I still think they got at least 2 losses under their belt this year. I can't tell you who, but I think they're going to slip up. They're on Kaiser now. Kaiser's a good quarterback. If they keep running the ball the way they are, maybe they do have a shot. Prosise had almost 200 yards rushing, and he had 3 TDs. Mm-hmm. So he had a heck of a game, but he was their whole team. Kaiser had a decent game.
Fuller again had a decent game receiving.
Fuller had like 160 receiving yards, I believe, but that 91-yard touchdown for Prosise was huge for him. But here's the thing with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has one offensive play, which breaks down into 3 different plays. It's the triple option. So you have 3 different options. The quarterback takes it, the fullback takes it, the running back takes it. Very rarely do they actually throw the ball. If you can stop the triple option, you're going to beat Georgia Tech. I mean, pretty simple, even though teams still struggle to do it.
We talked about it because it's one of those things where you really only have 1 week to prep for it because, them and Navy and, those are the only teams that run it.
And Army.
And Army.
Yep.
They run it. Maybe Air Force runs it a little bit. So it's kind of tough. You got to change up your schemes for the whole week on defense, preparing for that. But obviously Notre Dame did a good job at that. They didn't give much up. The score was probably closer than the game actually was. I think Georgia Tech scored a late.
Yeah, they scored 2 late touchdowns. One of them was after an onside kick. They tried to onside it again. Notre Dame recovered it. So 30-22 doesn't really reflect what the game really showed, even though the close score might get people to think it was a closer game than what it was.
So to answer your question, Ryan, I don't know. There's not really anybody that has shined, been that elite every game so far.
Yeah.
There hasn't really been that standout. Ole Miss beat Alabama, but I don't know that they've really been, totally outstanding all year. Their quarterback's getting there, but I guess they have as good a chance as anybody else. They're undefeated. They're ranked 6th in the country. They have a couple tough games. They play USC, they play Stanford, they play Clemson.
I think every top 10 team right now has a chance at the playoff. Personally, they're all undefeated. They all have a chance at the playoff. I mean, look at Ole Miss. Okay, so Ole Miss beats Alabama. They were ranked 15th, and they played Alabama, who was ranked number 2, and they jumped all the way up to number 3. I think that's a little ridiculous, considering Stanford beat USC, which was a 21 versus number 6. And Stanford didn't move at all. So I don't really know how that happens. Once again, is it SEC bias or is it really strength? I mean, yeah, Stanford lost their first game and they didn't look good. But then they came out and beat the number 6 team in the country. I personally think they should have moved up in the top 15. But maybe that's because I despise the SEC and everything it stands for.
It goes back, sorry to say it every week, but it just comes to the truth every week. The preseason rankings, where they put these teams,
it helps you.
You beat a team that's ranked up there, and it does wonders for you.
Especially
vice versa.
Yep.
Especially in the SEC.
SEC early in the season.
Everybody's got to play their conference games, and everything's going to shake out. So.
But as much as I hate the SEC, don't get me wrong, folks, I love seeing Alabama lose.
I love Alabama.
Especially when they're number 2. I love seeing them lose.
Especially at home.
That makes my heart happy.
Yes, that makes me very happy.
Ohio State. So Ohio State played Northern Illinois, and they won 20-13. Did I get that right? 20-13.
20-13.
They won by a touchdown, and one of those was a defensive touchdown. Cordell Jones got pulled in the game. He was like 11 of 19, I think, and not very many yards. And then JT Barrett came in, and he did not any better. I think Cordell Jones had 2 picks, no touchdowns, and JT Barrett was 1 for 1. So not all around a terrible game, really, for both teams. I think Northern Illinois quarterback only threw for like 100 yards and a couple picks.
I think he threw for 80 yards or something.
So not a good game all around. Ohio State, I have no idea what happened there with them. Mm-hmm. They're still a good team, even though I dislike them very much.
They have good defense.
They're a very good defense.
Running back. They'll
very good
figure
offense.
it out.
But they struggled big time against Northern Illinois.
The question before the season was Ohio State, who's your quarterback? Question now is who's your quarterback? But it's in a different type of situation.
Yep.
Before the season, they had 3 quarterbacks that have gotten the job done for them over and over again. And now, I mean, do they put Braxton Miller back there? I don't think they do. I think they go with Cardale Jones. They need to make a decision and say, Cardale Jones, you're playing, and you're going to stay in there. Whether you have a bad game, you just stick it out.
I personally think they're going to start JT Barrett this next week.
Okay.
After the 2 picks that he threw this last week against the Northern Illinois defense, they weren't good decisions. That game happened to be on the same time Nebraska. Terrible decisions, but he's a young quarterback too, so you got to expect that. JT Barrett's got a little bit more maybe experience on him, and I think that JT Barrett might start this next week. But it might be a game time decision too. We might see how practice goes during the week, and we'll see how Urban Meyer feels about the game. But all around, ugly win for Ohio State. But they're still number 1. One of those things where who else do you put number 1? Everyone in the top 10 has been winning, and no one's winning big. There's no deciding factor there, and even TCU played SMU this weekend, and TCU They were up 39 to 37 at one point, and they gave up a lot of points. They didn't give up any points after that. So the score looks, I think, 56-37. So the score looks pretty good, but in reality, SMU gave them a good challenge. I think they scored 2 TDs in the fourth quarter to kind of run away with it, and one was in the last 10 seconds of the game. So TCU still ranked number 3. I think they're still deserving, but I think Boykin's got a long ways to go with that TCU team, and I think they're still good enough to get to the playoff. But they're going to have to do better than what they did against an unranked SMU team.
Giving up 37 points to a team like that. I don't know that much about SMU, but when you see Baylor later in the season,
yep.
You know how fast Baylor can score points, how many points they put up. They're going to have to figure something out on defense.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that. The Big 12 will be interesting this year with Oklahoma and TCU and Baylor and even Oklahoma State. They're having a pretty decent start to the year. So
yep. I mean, Big 12 matchups are always tough.
Yeah. A couple other games. LSU destroying Auburn.
Fournette said, "Screw you, Auburn. Talk trash. I'm going to run it down your throat," and he did for 3 TDs and 228 yards on 19 carries. That is pretty unbelievable. He put up the middle finger and said, "Screw you."
We saw as of right now, he's the front runner for the Heisman with Chubb from Georgia, a close second. The game was at LSU. I didn't really have a doubt in my mind. I thought they were going to roll him up after seeing Auburn the week before. Auburn's making a quarterback change, they announced.
Yep.
We'll see how that goes. Maybe they can turn some things around with their season. They got some tough games. I mean, they're going to have to play. They're going to play Ole Miss and Alabama and Mississippi State.
Yep.
So come SEC matchups, I mean, they had one this week, but once they get to the heart of their season, they're going to have to buckle down and they're going to get beat up.
I think LSU might be the strongest team in the SEC. Personally, I think they're stronger than Ole Miss. Although Ole Miss looked really good against Alabama, so I think those might be the top 2 teams in the SEC this year, and it'll be interesting to see.
We'll have to take a look and see, when those 2 teams play each other, where that game's at. That could be kind of a deciding factor on what's going to go on with that game. But either way, I think it's going to be a great game.
Absolutely. Stanford, USC. We talked a little bit about it already. So number 6 team, USC, which I said very first show, USC is way overrated. I didn't think they'd even come close to finishing in the top 25 this year. I still don't think they will. If they beat Notre Dame, which they have a chance to do, that'll keep their season alive. But they got a big matchup coming up this weekend against Arizona State, and I personally think Arizona State might win that one at Arizona State to knock them out of the top 25. But they dropped 13 spots. Stanford didn't move, and Stanford, man, they look good this weekend. Very good game against a tough USC opponent.
USC, I had a little hope for them coming into the season because Cody Kessler is a really good quarterback.
Yep.
Aside from that, I know that they put up a lot of points and a lot of yards last year. I don't know how many guys they lost on defense. Maybe their defense isn't quite where it was or where it should be for them to make a run at the playoff. We'll see how it goes. The Pac-12's kind of, there's a lot of pretty good teams, kind of right in the middle of the rankings. And last season, every Saturday night, they had those late Pac-12 games, and there was always like a Hail Mary to win a game, or a road team would score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and come back and win. There's all kinds of craziness on Saturday nights, so hopefully there's a lot more of that this year. I like that. That's a lot of fun.
Specifically, the Pac-12 South is looking pretty good. You got 3 or 4 teams at 3-0, and then you got USC towards the bottom and Arizona State. I mean, this game this weekend between number 19 USC and unranked Arizona State's huge for that division, because if whoever loses that game is probably out of that divisional race to make it towards the end, unless another team towards the top of the South falls and just flops over. So. We'll see how that ends up.
I think the one other game we were going to talk about was that BYU and UCLA game.
BYU,
you were pretty high. You were pretty high on UCLA. I took UCLA. I kind of wanted to see how that game played out because we obviously lost to BYU on the Hail Mary, and just saying. BYU was winning that game.
But then BYU won week 2 as well. They had a heck of a game in week 2 to win to start 2-0 on the season. So coming into UCLA, I predicted UCLA in a playoff game. Now, is it BYU is that good? Or is it UCLA struggled against BYU?
They have a young quarterback that showed, his, inexperience, I guess you could say. He didn't have that many completions.